The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Vixens Who Rule. Now, I can promise you, this is going to be a very different show. Because this is a very different Vixen. This is a Vixen that somebody literally smartened me up 2 days ago. I didn't know who he was. I did some research. I'll be honest with you. You know Vince Russo, and you know the way my mind works. And I immediately fell in love with this Vixen. I'll be honest with you. I'm just going to put it out there. And you know me. I always say I love those that are different. I love those that are unique. I love those that are willing to take chances. Those are the people that become the stars in the wrestling business. Not the vanilla people, not the flip-flopping flyers, not the wrestlers that all look the same. Vince McMahon once taught me, if you want to be a star, you've got to look like a star. And I'm going to bring on a star right now, in my opinion, Mr. Rick Cataldo. Rick, are you there?
I'm here. That was quite an introduction. I am so humbled. I believe in myself now. Thank you. Hi.
Rick, listen, you're beautiful. I might have a little crush on you. I don't know what's going on right now, but I'm very taken back by the beauty. We had to reschedule. We were scheduled to do this yesterday, but I said, listen, I wanted you on here in all your glory, and you told me it took you a while to look beautiful, but here you are now with me, Rick.
And with that being said, this was actually rushed. Like, this is the way I look when I rush it. So imagine if I took time for you. Not saying that you're not worth it, but imagine if I went the extra, distance.
Well, Rick, listen, I think you're beautiful. Okay, I think the way you are right now, I think you're stunning, and I think you're beautiful. And Rick, listen, I know very little about you. I saw a lot of your work on YouTube. I saw you actually working with a friend of mine, Becky Bayless. I like Becky very, very much. I saw Becky. Some of that, but I don't know too much about you. But right off the bat, bro, I'm here in the New York. So I'm guessing you're from New York, Jersey, somewhere in that area.
You're Brooklyn. I know it's funny when I go out on dates, like, guys are like, I don't get it. Are you Italian? Are you from New York? I'm like, I'm gay and Italian from New York. I talk with my hands and I talk like this. I can't help it.
Well, bro, at the end of the day, though, listen, let's be honest. At the end of the day, you're an Italian New York guy, right?
I mean, at the end of some days. Maybe at the beginning of some mornings.
Bro, listen, you're talking to an Italian. I was born in Brooklyn, bro. Were you born in Brooklyn?
Born and raised, Bay Ridge.
Yeah. Hey, I got to tell you, man, I was born in Brooklyn, but I hadn't been to Brooklyn in a really, really, really long time. I went there about maybe a year and a half ago, and I worked a show. Bro, I can't believe how much it's changed. It's beautiful, man. Absolutely. I couldn't believe my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends where you go. Like, some areas got worse. Some areas got better because they're building Brooklyn as like the new Manhattan, I guess. My area, before I could remember, it was only like Irish, Greeks, and Italians. Now, if you walk around my neighborhood, it's like the Middle East. Which is not a bad thing, but...
Well, I was only really around the Barclays Center, and I mean it was just like Manhattan, exactly what you said. Mm-hmm. So your neighborhood, is it not that safe now? Is it? I mean, what are you telling me?
Post 9/11, they all came in, and let's just say in the last 5 years, my taste in guys went from white to Habibis.
Really? Okay. Now we have to. Okay. See, now you're confusing the audience. So let's set. We got to set the guidelines. I'm a little confused, but I think I'm starting to understand you already. As weird as that sounds, Rick, I think me and you may be on the same page. Okay. So Rick, you are a gay man,
right?
correct? And now
Yes.
but you've only been wrestling in drag, you said, for about a year.
Full drag, about a year, yeah.
Okay. Now, Rick, let's back up a little bit because you told me something before you came on the air. You told me that you trained at Johnny Rod's school.
Yes.
Okay, now, so the first question to you, and Rick, listen, I don't want to offend. I ask questions out of ignorance and interest.
Mm-hmm.
That's where all my, I admire what you're doing. I'm on board. I don't have a problem with it, but I do have some questions. So my first question is, bro, when you were going through the process of training to become a wrestler, at that point, were you out?
Well, before Johnny Rod's, I started in Camp IWF under Kevin Knight. His famous trainees were Darren Young at the time, who was known as Frank Sampson. And I was out, but I think what differs me from everyone was I was very young. I was a baby. I was 14 years old when I stepped in foot to become a wrestler. And I never wanted to become a wrestler. I wanted to be a manager first and foremost over anything. And it just, as I was training, and I was like smartening up to the indie scene around New Jersey, New York, I realized that management was a dead art form, in the area itself. Guys would just pay to play, or they had girlfriends and, arena rats playing the part of a manager. So I really, I just started to train in, and I never wanted to become a wrestler. But I think once I started wrestling with women, I found my niche.
Okay, but now, Rick, let me ask you this. When you're at Rod's school, listen, I was at Rod's school. And,
right.
Man, that's the real deal. That's right out of Rocky. That's about as real as it gets. And let's face it, Rick, a lot of people, know, Gleason's gym. A lot of people don't know that. You and I do. It's kind of, wrestling is just a little section in the back. It's really a gym for boxers. And,
right.
and Rick, let's face it. Let's be honest. You got a lot of real men's men, at Gleason's gym. So the guys you're training with now, Rick, do they know you're gay, or are you keeping that to yourself, or how is that working once you start the training process?
They knew I was gay. I mean, before I went to Johnny Rod's, I spent 2 years when I was 14, 15 bouncing around the indies. And so a couple of them already knew of me. This girl, I don't know if you're familiar with, there was a manager there at one time. Her name was Slim Jenkins. She found me on MySpace. And she told me about Gleason's, and I was like, "Oh my God, perfect! That's where I need to go." Because I'm not taking anything away from whoever went to Camp IWF, but I didn't find myself at Camp IWF. The second I went into Gleason's, I was disciplined off the bat. With that being said, I didn't hide anything. They knew I was gay. They knew I was only 16 years old, but they still treated me like anyone else ever stepped foot in that door.
Well, including Johnny himself.
Johnny, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm only asking that. Nothing against Johnny, but let's face it, Rick. Johnny's about as old school as they get.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying. Yeah. So I would probably think that you were probably a first for Johnny. So when you're that old school, I just don't know how he would take to somebody like you.
Well, it's crazy. I was never. Don't get me wrong. Johnny Rod's is a very intimidating guy, and he's very. Just talking to him 5 minutes in, you're silent, and you have a whole like encyclopedia of like the wrestling world, But with that being said, I think once he got to know me, he would think back of people he knew back in the day, and like he put two and two together and was like, "Oh, this shyster was like that, and that was what was going on." And
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. So how long were you at Johnny's gym before you started working out there independently?
I'd say I really owned my craft and disciplined myself there for about 2 years before I branched out.
Okay, now, Rick, you said something very interesting to me. You said that you found your niche when you started wrestling women.
Yes.
How did that happen? How did that come about? Because I'm assuming when you're training at Gleason's gym, you're training with the rest of the guys to be a wrestler. When did the working with women come into play?
Well, the thing was, I grew up loving wrestling since I was 5 because of the women. I don't, not saying that I don't care what the men do, but like I forget about it easily. I grew up obsessed with everything that the divas did back in the 90s. You know, the girls in WCW, the girls in ECW, the girls in WWF at the time, like, those are my idols. The way gay kids looked up to Cher and Madonna, like, for me, it was like Terry Reynolds, Sable, and Dawn Marie. Like, and everyone in between. Like, I just really, it's something connects to me where women's wrestling became my obsession, or women in wrestling, rather, became my obsession. And I studied it before knowing what studying was in wrestling. Like, when I was 10, 11, 12, every time a girl segment was on, or every time a manager was involved, I'd hit record on my VHS and I'd replay it. And like, these girls, I would draw them in my notebooks at school, and they posted them all. I really watched wrestling for the women.
Rick, can I ask you something really stupid, bro? And again,
no,
please,
of course.
it's total ignorance. Like, it's total ignorance on my part. When you're growing up, you know, like in the early 90s, and you're watching these beautiful women. I had the pleasure of working with Terry and Sable, and they're beautiful women. Now, Rick, I mean, I don't know how to ask this, so I'm just going to ask this because I want to understand. Do you know, like, you're gay at that point? Like, in other words, do you know you're not looking at these women because as a guy, you're physically attracted to them? You understand what I'm saying?
I do. And I can answer you off the bat, I knew. I mean, I didn't know, like 7, 8, 9 years old, you don't know what gay is because I wasn't, you know, I'm not like, the sex was brought to my face, you know, as visually because of the divas or women, whatever. But I knew something was different because I related to these women. I grew up, don't get me wrong, I had a father figure. I'm very close to my father. I talk to him every day. But growing up, I had 2 sisters, younger and older. I had a lot of aunts. I was very close to my mom, close to both my grandmas. But at the same time, my boy side came in when I was a kid. I liked the Power Rangers and the X-Men and comics. And I was really hooked on video games. Here, I'll tell you how I became obsessed with wrestling. Video games was my obsession as a kid. And in every video game, there's one girl. In, you know, Mortal Kombat, it was Sonya Blade, and Street Fighter was Chun-Li. So I saw it was different, and I saw that, like, you know, I know, not knowing at the time that, you know, I'm connected to whatever you want to call it, feminine power or feminine will, you know, at a young age, because I relate to girls, not knowing it. I always chose girls to play. So when I first saw Medusa in WCW with the USA flag and the Americana gimmick, I connected it to Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat, and I started watching wrestling, and I always looked out for her. So the rest is history. I became obsessed with wrestling. And then once I made the switch to WWF to Sable and Terry, Marlene at the time, I was like, hooked.
But now, see, okay, I guess listen, Rick, you got to excuse me with this. This is very interesting.
Of course.
And bro, I'm totally cool with who you are. I mean, understand that from the bat. But like, I get interested in stuff like this because I got to tell you something, Rick. I'm being totally honest with you. The whole Caitlyn Jenner thing, like, I'm fascinated by that. Like, I'm just so fascinated by that. But now you never went down that road. You were never like, you know, oh, okay, I'm a guy, but you know, I feel like I should have been born a woman. You were more of, you were a guy, but you knew you were attracted to other guys.
I was a guy who very early on was in touch with his feminine side, let's say. Okay. And I didn't relate to the younger boys growing up. And by the time I knew I was gay, you know what? Growing up as an adolescent and a teenager, I had experiment with girls, but I didn't like it, and I wasn't satisfied. And what I liked more about those girls was using them either as eye candy or being around them just because the visual look good. And later on, that's something that was installed in my brain. Being gay, you know, gay people, we have a tendency to look past what's in front of us, you know, for like multiple reasons. Yeah,
but you could see where the confusion with me is coming. Like the confusion is coming that I'm trying to understand is like, you know, you knew you were attracted to guys, but when it came to wrestling, you were in love with the women's side of it.
Yes. Very much so.
That's really, really interesting. Okay. All right. So now, Rick, let's get back to where we were. So now you're training. So now where does the idea, or how do you get into the process of, okay, now I'm going to wrestle women?
Backtrack before I was in, before I found myself at Johnny's at Gleason's, and before I was really smartened up, I was still floating around the Jersey Independence, and I was at Camp IWF, and I knew I didn't want to be a wrestler. Like, I never lifted a weight in my life. I mean, I've done cardio, don't get me wrong, but it didn't appeal to me. And like I said, management was such a dead art form that like when I asked someone to like, yo, help me with promos or help me like ringside, no one knew what to do because they were too busy learning how to drop kick and take a bump and do all these stupid flips. They had one girl there, the name of Jana, and she started working out with me in the ring a little bit. And she told me that, you know, her being a woman, she had to work 10 times as hard as guys just to get like half the respect because she had to make everything look bigger and stronger because she was a girl.
Right.
And when we started working out a little bit, we put on these matches. I felt comfortable because all these years of growing up watching the female only, you know, studying before knowing what studying was, I put it into play with her, and I became so comfortable. And without knowing what women's wrestling psychology is, I was doing it with her. So that's why it clicked to me, because in my brain, this is what's in my head of what wrestling was.
Okay, so now let me ask you this, Rick. How do you sell that to promoters to hire you to work their shows?
I think I don't really sell it. Like I never. I think once I started doing shows and they saw me, they saw an idea of their own. And throughout the years, what I became to promoters and to promotions that use me and the bookers, whatever, they use me as someone to put the guy over. And I'm not selfish in that way, because either as a manager or working the girl, my job is to make the other person look better than they are. Not saying that disrespectfully, but through watching women's wrestling and watching women valets and even managers, like that was always their job and their purpose. And that's what I studied on my own time to execute in the ring.
Now, let me ask you this, because you know, it's a different day and age out there in 2015, and like I'm doing my own thing now with the podcast and everything. So like I don't really have my hands physically in wrestling. But I want to ask you this, Rick. Do you think because of who you are and because of this gimmick, were more doors open or closed for you, do you think?
Closed, definitely closed.
Really?
Yeah, I was never part of the boys club. I saw the boys club. I came to understand it. Don't get me wrong. Whenever they found a little something or a one-off show where I was valuable to them, they'd use me. But like a lot of I've seen. I mean, everyone sees doors closed. It's just the nature of the beast. But at the same time, being out and who I am at 14, 15, because I was always out even 10 years ago when I started. Like next month will make 11 years for me, and I was always out and always not shy about who I was, and that just really turned a lot of people off, because like you said, in 2015 with Caitlyn Jenner and Lady Gaga making everyone feel comfortable, it wasn't that way in 2006, 2007 when I was like traveling out there and stuff. And through subsequent reasons, you know, I developed, I wouldn't say an attitude, but I developed tough skin. And yeah, I mean, wrestling is it's weird, it's condescending, it's a loner sport. Because I mean, you should know more than anyone, like it's very selfish. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there is boy clubs and there is cliques and there is guys who are close to one another just to use each other to make themselves feel better or look better. And at the end of the day, I don't know. I forgot the original question. I just went off chasing rabbits. I'm sorry.
Well, Rick, was it more like, you know, no, thank you? Or what? Like were people mean to you?
No, people were never mean outright, because what it was they didn't know what to do with me. You know, a lot of people were turned off by the idea of intergender wrestling.
Hold on for a second. I hate to interrupt you, Rick, but I have to ask you this. Listen, when you say they don't know what to do with me, listen. Anybody, if you're in the wrestling business, right? Maybe you don't know who Gorgeous George is, okay? But I think you definitely know who Adrian Adonis is. I think you definitely know who Goldust is.
Goldust, right,
so,
right.
So that's why I'm a little confused. If there are promoters out there running shows and they should have some kind of a background and a history in wrestling, I would think that here comes somebody like you who's so special and so unique that immediately they would know what to do with you.
You would think, Vince, you would think. And like, if you're in wrestling, you of course you should know who Gorgeous George is. Anyone living on the rock, you should know what that is. And it's not that these people don't know what to do with me. It's just that, like, I'll give you an example. Johnny Rodz booked a show, an outside show in Texas a couple of years ago. I was booked, not to this extent in drag, but I was very flamboyant, and I was booked to referee a match between Marty Bell, Tina San Antonio, from Vixens, and Angel Williams. I'm sorry, Angelina Love.
Mm-hmm.
A three-way. I was booked to ref it. The last minute, the promoter was like, "No, absolutely not for this show." And then the funny thing is, you have X-Pac saying "suck it," and you have Dennis Rodman hosting the event. So it's a very double-edged sword. Of course, people should know what to do with me because I'm not tooting myself. I'm not tooting my own horn. I don't have an ego, but I feel like I'm a great manager. I'm a great personality. I can talk on the stick if needed. I can do a baby face and a heel in the ring, even though I'd rather be outside the ring. But in 2015, going to 2016, a lot of people on the indie level, at least, don't care for storylines and promos. They just care for exhibition matches and a bunch of high spots.
Well, Rick, I got to tell you this. Listen, I got a million questions for you, but I got to tell you this. I think you for you to do what you're doing, man, you are a freaking strong person.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, real, and you should be proud of doing what you're doing. And I got a million questions. I want to start.
Can I tell you my proudest moment in wrestling is?
Yeah,
like I can like retire or quit, retire, whatever you want to call it. I can like stop tomorrow. My proudest moments was I met Terry Reynolds in 2008. Like, she's my childhood hero. I met her in 2008. We kikied at this convention. The Wrestlers Rescue that Dawn Marie was doing at the time. And then a year later, we were on the same show together. And she came to the show late. I was the opening match, a tag match. And as soon as I walked through the back, she came up. I had curly hair at the time, my natural hair. She came up, scratched my head, and was like, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you." So just the fact that she remembered me and watched my match, like, that to me is an honor. Because to me, she's my Derek Jeter. She's my Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff like that is like my highlights. Like Ivory praising me, Molly Holly praised me. Someone, Gorgeous George today, Stephanie Bellis, who valeted Macho Man.
Mm-hmm.
Someone can think her word is nothing in wrestling. But you know what? She gave me advice that wasn't wrestling necessary. I was 18 at the time. We were on an all-girl show. And I had the Marilyn Monroe piercing. And she looked at me and she was drinking a beer. She was like, "Baby, you're so pretty. You have natural beauty marks. You should highlight those because that's who you are, not Marilyn."
Mm-hmm.
And so ever since then, I highlighted my own beauty marks. Like, those to me are really things that like are my personal wrestling highlights, not like.
And being on this show has got to be like the biggest thrill in your life. I would have to believe.
I am like having a panic attack.
All right. Listen, but Rick, you got to let me ask the questions. I got a million questions for you.
Okay.
Rick, I want to ask you this. Now I saw your work, bro. I did watch the stuff. You're a big guy. So
yeah.
you're still working with women.
I'm voluptuous. Come on now.
You're voluptuous. You're beautiful. Listen, I'm in love with you. I have no problem saying that, bro. Whatever that means to anybody, I'm in love with you. So that'll be the headlines tomorrow. But Rick, I got to ask you this. You're still working with women. So what I mean is you're physically stronger than them. Is that a problem sometimes, like being afraid of hurting them? Or because, I mean, let's face it, you're a man and they're women. Do you ever worry about that?
At the end of the day, no, I don't, because I found a balance, I think, in myself over the years where, like I said, I might be big, but I don't work out, I don't lift, I don't power train. I work with women. I'm comfortable with women's bodies the way that no man is. You know what I mean? So I know how to not pull back, because I'm not out there phony fighting these girls, but I know how to, I guess, mesh well together. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there has been cases where like I've been stiff, but it was never intentionally, and it was always because sometimes these girls. You said something very interesting. Like you said, like I'm good with women's bodies, and I understand what you're saying, but like, does that ever freak out any of the women? No, because they're very. I think once they meet me and get to know me off one encounter, I think they have an idea of what I am. Women and gay people, I think they're not one and the same. They're very different creatures. It's just that in wrestling, women already have a hard time. They have to work 10 times to get the half respect, you know, especially women who want to be wrestlers.
Right.
So I think more so than anyone, I know what they're going through and I know their mindset.
Right.
And I think that level of trust plays out in the ring.
Okay, so Rick, so like you start working the independents and you're still, you know, you're not in drag yet. You're still a Rick Catalano. You're not in drag yet. Are you Cataldo? Yeah, I keep messing that up. I'm sorry, because it looks like Cataldo. But Rick, are you having problems getting yourself booked? Like, how are you getting yourself booked?
Just word of mouth and my vets. But like I said before, Gleason's in IWF. She actually wasn't in IWF when I came into play. She was already making a name for herself in the Northeast. I don't know if you're familiar with this lady wrestler, Alicia. She was getting booked. She was booked for this promotion called JAP, which was a big deal in New Jersey at the time. And she was like their female Goldberg. And we met at IWF, and she got me my first book in that side, and we became very close friends to this day. I forget that we even met through wrestling. So it was people in her group that took a liking to me and that I'm grateful for, and that's how I spread my wings, I guess.
Okay, but all right, so Rick, now somewhere along the line, you make the decision like I'm going all the way with this, which is we're seeing the beautiful Rick Cataldo now.
The boy diva, yeah.
Yeah. Now, give me the mindset. Like before you do this, what's going through your mind that's bringing you to, you know what? I'm just going all the way with this. What? Give me the thought process.
You mean the full out drag of how I came to that?
Yes.
Well, if I can bore you with a little backstory, about 5 years ago, I'd say to this day, I've reached my pinnacle of spreading my wings and going out there independently, where I was fortunate enough to hook up with Lucha Libre legend Cassandro, and he was getting me these Lucha Libre show bookings, and I was doing bigger venues and, you know, working names. And I really, I reached a level where I was really comfortable in the ring. I was really adaptable to all styles, and I was really feeling good about myself. And 6 years in, I was really like at a nice spot. So subsequently, I took a step back from wrestling to focus on my real life, because at the time I was only 20 and I wanted to get school and a lot of stuff under my belt while still taking preferable certain bookings in the area. But, you know, real life aside, I kind of got stuck because I put wrestling on the back burner, and I kind of regretted that decision, because at one point I was kind of like really comfortable where I felt like I took 2 steps backwards, like my ring cardio wasn't good, and at one point I one point I grew my hair out to my ass, my real natural hair, and I shaved it all off, and I couldn't grow it back anymore. You know, I was getting older, it was thinning out, and at the time I was really, really in an Adrian Adonis stage where it was really androgynous. And so back up a year ago, it wasn't an injury. I took some time off from wrestling because my spleen and my liver had enlarged. So I took time away for like 9 months, and I was really at a crossroads where I was like, you know, I made the mistake years ago where I had all these opportunities, and half of them were shot in my face. Half of them, I turned them down because I wanted to focus on my real life, and my real life really wasn't up to par where I thought it would be. So I decided, like, what am I going to do wrestling? Am I going to go back, or am I just going to fizzle away? I decided to go back doing the drag thing, because at this point, you know, through social media, there were so many gay wrestlers messaging me saying, oh my God, I look up to you. Oh my God, thank you for showing me you can do that. Because besides the gimmicks of Gorgeous George and Goldust and Enrico and who have you, and besides the exoticos in Lucha, you know, in Mexico, Lucha Libre, like, there really isn't an out and about authentic gay wrestler. And I have all these people messaging me, and, you know, I'm keeping in touch with them. I made friends, you know, people in Vegas and people in California and people in Canada doing what I was doing. And I thought to myself, well, now I'm not original. And not just that, what is it to be a gay wrestler in the US? Because, like, at the end of the day, Uja Short was great. Adrian Downs was great. Goldust was great. It was fantastic. But that was their idea of what a gay wrestler should be. Because at the end of the day, it was a gimmick. I am authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at my, I was contemplating my comeback, you know, when I was getting ready to start wrestling again after my organs calmed down. And what's relevant in the gay community is it's being more accepted with the transsexuals and Laverne Cox and now Caitlyn Jenner. And the biggest thing in media and entertainment is RuPaul's Drag Race.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured I have a niche for it. It already evolved my makeup and my androgynous skills. Let's go all out, because going back to why I fell in love with wrestling was because of the 90 managers, Sunny, Sable, Terry, Dawn Marie. I wanted to embody that, especially because this promotion I work for, WSU Wrestling, was starting to run shows out of the ECW arena. So I really wanted to embody what those girls embodied in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so here we are now with the drag. And I said, fuck it. Let me put on makeup. Let me be the woman, because I already have an idea of what a woman should be and how a woman should act, and the psychology of being a woman in wrestling.
Well, Rick, can I say this? And pardon the pun. Pardon the pun.
No, okay.
But I have to say this, bro. Listen, for you to do that, bro, it takes a big pair of balls.
Thank you.
You know, brass balls, bro. It's not like it's not like F it, I'm just gonna do this. I mean, you're really making a statement, and it's the kind of thing, Rick, that I would think once you go there, right? Like, there's no going back. So, like, it had to be going through your mind, what if this doesn't work, right?
Well, even to this day, and I've been doing it for a year, some people, fans, they don't understand it, but fans' interpretation to everything is open for discussion. You know what I mean?
Right.
So far, I've gotten awesome feedback from my peers, the girls who I work with, the bookers, and, you know, everyone in between. So I see no complaints yet.
Rick,
And I think I haven't even reached the pinnacle of what I'm doing with this drag look. Like, so far this past year, I've only managed. I don't want to say poorly booked, because they meant something to the show, but I was kind of overlooked. I say.
mm-hmm.
So far, I haven't really shown what I got yet. If that makes sense.
Rick, let me ask you this. Let me talk to you about this from a business perspective. Okay. Rick, the one thing that drives me crazy about wrestling today, and I can only compare it to the Attitude Era because that was my heyday. So that's the only comparison I can make. Right. What bothers me so much about wrestling today is I just feel like everything is played safe. Nobody takes any chances. Everything is so vanilla. All these guys coming out of NXT and everything, they all look the same. And, you know, Rick, like, if I was still writing, I would look at you and, like, there would be no questions asked. This person stands out. She's got star written all over her. I feel confident in my booking abilities that I'll be able to get her over story-wise, etc. Like, in a heartbeat, you would be in. But I know, like, in this day and age, nobody's going to take that chance and put their job on the line. So everybody's going to play it safe. That's what you're getting in wrestling today. Now, you're a smart guy. I can tell that, and I know that everything I'm telling you, you know, and it might hinder you being hired on a big stage. Does that matter to you, or is it more important for you to do what you feel you should be doing?
It matters to me because anyone in their right mind, anyone who's wrestling, anyone who's fallen on purpose for X amount of dollars every weekend is a liar if they said it didn't matter to them. With that being said, I already, like you said, kind of know everything that you just said. Like, and I do get the fuzzy end of the lollipop, especially in today's age. I'm just going to be really bitter and really, I wouldn't say jealous, just a little upset, because I know even though they're playing it safe now, as time evolves, you know, wrestling is always, I feel, 2 steps behind the real world.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Yes.
So I feel like what should be happening now isn't going to happen until another 5-10 years. And in those 5 and 10 years, I know they're going to have an out and about gay character similar to me or similar to an idea I have. And that'll make me a little sore. I'm not going to say it won't, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to say it's going to affect me. I just know that I had the ability and I had the mindset to do it now or 5 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect me because my whole purpose, even from when I was young, well, not from the beginning, but like growing up in wrestling, my real dream, my real make it was to one day work behind the scenes for the girls, be like the Fit Finley of tomorrow's girls. Whether it's booking, telling a girl how she should be, telling a girl how she should look, the psychology of being a woman in wrestling. That's my real dream. Hopefully one day I'll accumulate.
Yeah. Well, Rick, listen, like I said, man, one of the biggest problems with me in wrestling today is everybody looks the same. Everybody, there's more of a concentration on wrestling. When there's more of a concentration on wrestling and you're trying to memorize spots, the first thing that goes out the window is the character, because you can't memorize spots and remember how your character would act at the same time. So everything that's how we got into these spot fests. Mm-hmm. I love what you're doing because, man, like I said, man, I love people that take chances. I love people that, are unique and aren't afraid to be cutting edge and to try something different. And I really hope, I'm telling you, man, no matter what happens, I hope you just don't fall into the sea of vanilla like everybody else, because I'm telling you, Rick,
I thought you were going to say the Valley of Fatigue.
No, the wrestling world, Rick, I've been doing a lot of research, like in the early, the early stages of wrestling. How did wrestling come about? And, it was like a sideshow at carnivals. But,
right, it was in the same tent as burlesque and strippers. At the end of the day, we're all whores.
Yeah, but everything you read about wrestling in the early days, there's one word that's always there. Entertainment. And we're seeing less and less of that in wrestling. I swear, I went to Lucha Underground in LA. I went to one of their shows a couple of months ago. My favorite character on that show is Pimpinella.
Right.
Because he comes out and the guy is so different and so over the top. And I just got the wrestling business is missing that. And that's why I really, really hope you stick to your guns.
Thank you. I hope so too.
What do you mean you hope so? Are you going to stick to the guns?
I feel like
talk to me, Rick. Hey, Rick, people call me the Oprah of podcasting. So feel free to talk to me now. Let's get it all out there. Come on.
Well, I feel like I think I may be jaded to a certain level, and I feel like, I'm not accumulating what I should accumulate. And at the end of the day, for example, and I had this discussion with my father, who doesn't understand the wrestling business, of course, but he wants the best for his son. He's saying, "Why aren't you there? Why aren't you on that level?" I'm like, "Pop, number one, I already had that door shut. Number two, now they already have guys in NXT that have flamboyant characters. So in their little league, so to say, they already have guys that developing that's already not pushing the envelope, but that's borderline kind of dancing on it. Tyler Breeze, for example, if they wanted to go that route, they already have him. So that's one spot for so many guys that can do it. I happen to be probably the only guy that can do what he's doing, but he's in shape. He has that carbon copy Ken doll look what they want, and he has that little gimmick. So what can you do? And other than that, I feel like, like I said, I met these up and coming wrestlers who are doing what I did or doing what I'm doing. And, as I get older, they're just going to pop up more and they're going to be younger. So I feel like I'm not going to be able to cross the road that I'm paving. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you are going to be able to cross the road because, Rick, let me tell you something. First of all, the grass is not greener on the other side because there is so much politics involved in professional wrestling that once you get to that level, it's not fun anymore. take it from me. And I was making more money than I could ever imagine. And it was not fun for me anymore. It turned into a job. It was not the sport I once loved. And you really, once you get in, there's a rude awakening. You know what's the most important thing, man? Let me tell you something. Whether you ever work for WWE or TNA or in anybody, Rick, you know what the most important thing is? When you work an indie show, okay, and say 60 people paid to go see that indie show. You know what's the most rewarding thing at the end of the day? More important than a spot in WWE, than making, thousands of dollars. You know what's more important than that? At the end of the day, when those people go home, two things, bro. Number one, they were entertained. And number two, who are they going to remember? They're going to remember somebody like you. That's you did your job right there, Rick. The rest of it is all political. It is all political. You, at your level, they are going to remember you when they leave the show. Rick, I worked the show in Brooklyn with the SAT guys, and those guys are my friends, right? Mm-hmm. Rick, I worked the show there for them. Every single match was an X division match. There were 18 guys in every match. And I told those guys when I left, I said, when these people leave, they're not going to remember anything. Nobody's going to stand out. Nobody had a character. Nobody was special. It's going to be a blur to them. You look different. You look like a star. I've seen you work. You're as entertaining as hell. When people pay to see you and to come to a show, I don't care if it's 10 or 10,000, they're going to go home remembering you and you entertaining them. There's nothing more important. There's nothing more you could do that's bigger than that. I hope you understand that.
I do, thank you.
Are you sure, Rick?
I'm grasping it.
Rick, I'm telling you, I'm just telling. I've been to the promised land, and it's not all it's cut out to be. And like I said, man, if I've seen you entertain the people, and if you can entertain people and put smiles on people's faces and get heat and make them cheer, whatever it is you're supposed to do, then you're a successful professional wrestler.
Thank you. That means a lot.
You believe me, Rick?
I'm being humbled live. What can I say?
Rick, I love the eyes. How long now did it take us to put the eyes together tonight?
The whole thing was 45 minutes. The eyes itself was probably 10 minutes. I don't know if you can see closely. I only... I got a lot of stuff going on. Smokey has white, blue. But what I did special for you was I only blackened the middle of my eyelid.
Wow.
That way it gives it like a doll-like feature.
That's real intricate. And you did that just for me, huh?
Yes.
Nice. Okay, Rick, listen, I love you. I love what you're doing. I'm going to start following your career now. Give me all the plugs. Everybody watching this interview, where can they follow you now? Where can they see you work? Hit us with all of it.
Very short and simple. Twitter, Instagram, The Boy Diva, all one word, TheBoyDiva. On YouTube, just type in Rick Cataldo, RickCataldo, and you'll find a lot of matches, a lot of girls that I put over, a lot of sexy matches, a lot of entertainment. And coming up, NYWC Wrestling, July 30th in Long Island, NYWCWrestling.com. I am a staple in WCWrestling.com, which I think is the best women's professional wrestling promotion there has ever been. You can check that out at CZWstudios.com. And August 9th, a Japanese promotion is coming to New York for the first time at the Queen's Elk Lodge, so check that out.
Where is the show in Long Island? I'm just asking because that's where I'm from.
Deer Park.
Okay, yeah, Deer Park. I know where that is.
Might be Ripwrecks.
Okay. Hey, listen, Rick. If I can spend a couple of days, and come up with a fabulous name for you. Would you be open to hearing suggestions to come up with a fabulous name for you?
Yeah.
You'll be open to it. And it's okay. Can I email you these names? I want to think about it for a couple of days, but I'd like to see if I can come up with some kind of a fabulous name for you.
Can I hit you with something real quick?
Absolutely.
Because I always thought if I was, I'm already doing drag and wrestling, but I'm not a drag queen in the gay community. But if I was, my name would be Reina Tara. So it sounds like Reina Tara.
But you know what I don't like about that? It sounds too much like a wrestling name.
Well, not in the drag community, you see.
Wait, explain that to me. What do you mean now?
Well, I understand why you say it's a wrestling name because it just sounds vicious.
Yeah, it does.
But in drag, it's the whole point is being the two-name pun where everyone would call me Reina because it means queen in Latin. But then the whole name is Reina Tara.
Temra?
Tara.
Oh, so say that again. Reina Tara?
Reina, like Rena.
Yeah.
And then Tara, like a girl's name Tara.
Yeah, but I think you need like a fabulous name.
Like what?
Like, because when I see your ring, I love your ring entrances, and you come out with the ring entrance like you're all it. You're just totally fabulous. We need something like that. I think you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me think about it. And I'm really going to do that. I'm not kidding you. I'm going to think about it, and I'm going to email you if that's okay with you.
Of course, I'm excited. I'm honored too. Honestly, don't think I'm not like, pinching myself that I'm talking to you.
No, I'm honored. I'm honored that you're on the show. Like I said, somebody just tweeted me and said, you got to have, Rick Cataldo on your show. And I said, who? And I went and researched and I said, I definitely got to have Rick Cataldo on my show. And you did not disappoint me. I love talking to you. I'm looking forward to see where you go from here. Hey, Rick, no, listen, bro, I'm not kidding you.
I'll take the message yet to come.
Yeah, and you ever want to ask me any questions? You ever want to bounce anything off of me? You got my email now. I sent you the post for this interview, and I'll be happy to talk to you anytime that you like.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, and I really will.
Okay.
So if I'm bothering you, don't be bothered that I'm bothering you.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because I really do believe in what you're doing because I feel it's a lost art in professional wrestling. I really, really do. So somebody that gets it and understands and wants to entertain, I want to do everything I can to possibly help you.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
Well, everybody, Rick, don't go away yet. I want to give you a personal goodbye. But there you have it, everybody. The fabulous Rick Cataldo, and we're going to work on a name. We got to work. We need a fabulous. We need a one word name. We need like a Cher or a Madonna, something like that. I'm going to think about it. Then I'm going to hit it with her, and we'll see where we go from there. But Rick, thank you so much for joining us today on Vixens Who Rule.
Thank you for having me, and don't forget to follow me at the Boy Diva.
There you go, at the Boy Diva. We'll be back here next week. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
The preceding presentation was brought to you by the Realm Network.